Cheese, particularly processed varieties, is another hidden enemy for people with high blood pressure, and it is dangerous precisely because it hides behind an image of indulgence, comfort, and even perceived nutrition. Cheese is often seen as a good source of calcium and protein, but the reality is that most cheeses, especially processed slices, spreads, and certain aged varieties like feta or parmesan, are extremely high in sodium, saturated fats, and additives that together form a serious risk for cardiovascular health. For someone managing hypertension, cheese is not just a casual topping on a sandwich or salad. It is a dense package of hypertension triggers wrapped in a deceptively small, flavorful serving. The sodium content in cheese is staggering once you look closely. A single ounce of feta contains around 300 to 400 milligrams of sodium, while processed American cheese slices can hold 400 milligrams or more per slice. Parmesan, one of the saltiest varieties, often contains 450 milligrams in just a tiny sprinkle of grated portion. Because cheese is rarely eaten in small amounts, think of multiple slices on a burger, generous handfuls on pizza, or a heavy layer on pasta. The sodium intake quickly skyrockets. For someone with high blood pressure, it is dangerously easy to consume half, or even all of their recommended daily sodium limit from cheese alone in just one meal. That sodium drives fluid retention, raises blood volume, and directly elevates blood pressure, setting the stage for repeated strain on the heart and arteries. The problem doesn't stop at sodium. Cheese is also dense in saturated fats, which clog arteries and reduce their elasticity, making it harder for blood to flow and increasing resistance within the cardiovascular system. When arteries stiffen, the heart must work harder to push blood through, compounding the effects of sodium-induced pressure. Over time, this accelerates atherosclerosis, raises the risk of stroke and heart attack, and makes blood pressure much more difficult to control. Cheese is a classic double threat. The salt spikes blood pressure acutely, while the fat silently damages arteries over years, creating a deadly synergy that is particularly dangerous for hypertensive individuals. Processed cheeses are even more harmful because they often include additives and preservatives on top of their already high sodium and fat content. Items like cheese spreads, individually wrapped slices, or cheese-flavored snacks are often little more than industrially engineered salt and fat delivery systems. These products can contain artificial stabilizers, emulsifiers, and extra sodium to maintain their texture and flavor, making them worse than natural cheeses. Eating these regularly isn't simply indulging in dairy. It's essentially inviting a steady supply of vascular stressors into the body, accelerating hypertension complications in silence. What makes cheese particularly insidious is how socially normalized it is in modern diets. From pizza and burgers to sandwiches, pastas, and salads, cheese is present almost everywhere, often in quantities people don't think about. A slice of pizza, for example, can easily contain 600 to 800 milligrams of sodium, much of it from the cheese alone, and few people stop at one slice. Add in a soda or a salty side dish, and a single meal can deliver more than double the safe sodium intake for a hypertensive person. Cheese isn't just an accessory. It often becomes the central flavor and calorie source of meals, and that frequency of exposure is precisely what makes it so dangerous for blood pressure management. Long-term risks are alarming. People who regularly consume high amounts of cheese are more likely to experience chronic hypertension, kidney strain, and arterial damage. The kidneys, in particular, bear the brunt of high sodium intake, working overtime to flush excess salt, which eventually impairs their function and makes it even harder to regulate blood pressure. This creates a vicious cycle. The more sodium and fat consumed through cheese, the more blood pressure rises and the more kidney damage accumulates, which then worsens hypertension further. It's a downward spiral with serious consequences, including a much greater risk of stroke, heart attack, and kidney failure. The most misleading aspect of cheese is the perception that because it comes from milk, it is automatically healthy. While it does provide calcium and protein, these benefits are overshadowed by the immense sodium and saturated fat burden, particularly for people with high blood pressure. Calcium's bone-strengthening effects are meaningless if the cardiovascular system is being steadily eroded by sodium and fat. In fact, the occasional nutrients in cheese act almost like a disguise, allowing it to sneak under the radar of dangerous foods, while in reality contributing significantly to hypertension and heart disease. For people with high blood pressure, cheese is not just a guilty pleasure. It is a genuine hazard. Even small, daily amounts can build into chronic sodium and fat overload, raising blood pressure and silently undermining cardiovascular health. The safest approach is to treat cheese with extreme caution, avoiding processed varieties entirely and limiting even natural cheeses to rare, carefully measured portions. Otherwise, the cumulative damage may not be noticeable until it manifests as a stroke, a heart attack, or kidney disease, at which point the price of those small indulgences becomes devastatingly clear.